Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Well, we pretty much didn't do anything last week. It was just too wet and too nasty about all week long. So we finally had some sun the last few days. Got a nice forecast as far out as we can see, plenty of high wind. So I think today we're going to start doing a little bit of chisel plowing. Last week there, they delivered our new to us Landoll 2310. We traded in our old Glencoe soil saver on it. And as you can see, this chisel plow has disc blades in the front, rippers in the middle, disc blades in the back, and a rolling basket. Now it's pretty much just like our John Deere 512 for the most part, except the John Deere doesn't have a rolling basket on the back. But other than that, it's going to leave a pretty similar profile going through the field. Before that Glencoe soil saver, it left them great big old ridges where behind the Deere it was a lot more smooth. So we wanted a tool that we could run them both in the same field if we have to, or something that's a little bit closer than what the other two were. So I think today we're going to be firing these two up and see if we can't get a whole bunch of ground ripped this week. The new Landoll, it's a 5-shank, and this John Deere is a 7-shank. So the Deere is a little bit wider. We're going to pull the Landoll on the 295, and the Deere goes on the 9230. So we had a pretty good frost last night. It got down to, I don't know, 24, 25 degrees. So I mean, it was more than a frost, it was a freeze. So we're going to let things dry off this morning. You know, let the frost get out of the ground, get the frost burn off everything so it ain't so slick, and then hopefully we can fire up. We had about, oh gosh, it would have been between 4 and 5 inches of rain last week by the time it was all said and done. So it was pretty wet last week. So I think this week we're going to be able to rock and roll and hopefully knock all this plowing out in a week. We'll just have to see. Hopefully we don't have any trouble. So let's give it a little time here and then we'll get started. So I think that was last Monday when I went out and picked that Landoll chisel up. So it'd been a week ago today. And they was calling for fairly heavy rain by like noon that day, and by the time we got it hooked up and got it back home and got it to the field, because we had to make several adjustments on it. That's a used chisel plow, so we had to adjust quite a few things to get it to fit our tractor and the way we wanted things to work. And you know, so that took a couple hours time. We got all that done and got it set right and tweaked. A lot of stopping and going, you know. So by the time we got all that done, it ended up coming to rain. So I've only worked probably 7, 8, 9 acres with it, something like that. But it should be good to go now. We should be able to just take off the field and go, and you know, might have to adjust the depth a little bit, but everything else I think is pretty well tweaked the way we want it. So I don't know, we're thinking about starting down in the Kaskaskia River bottom, because that's one of them farms you definitely want to get that plowed, because if the river gets out and it hasn't been plowed, you'll have corn stalks chest deep all over the place down there. So I think we're maybe going to start down there and then go on farther south from there and try to get it to where once we're all said and done, everything that's left is up here around the house. That way if it rains, you're not having to drive 10 miles to see how much rain they got, or you're all scattered out. So we're going to try to start away from home and work our way back if things work out. So that's the plan as of now. Well, before we get fired up here, we're going to put new points on that Deere chisel. The ones that are on it they're marginal. I mean, they ain't terrible, but once we move south, you know, we're not going to be wanting to put points on down in the field. There's several hundred acres down there to plow, so it's like, let's just do it now and get it done. So we'll slap them on real quick. It's nothing to it. Just pull a bolt out, pull the old one off, slap the new one on, put the bolt back in. So we'll give that a whirl.
tractor has any tools in it or not.
Have what?
If this tractor's got any tools in it or not, we'll want to throw some in.
I got Larry going on the 9230 and the John Deere chisel there at his house. In the years past, it was kind of the way it always worked out was I ran the 8295 with the Glencoe soil saver and done all the bean stubble with it. And Larry would always run the 9230 and the 512 and do all the corn stalks with it. And so we're just going to keep the same rotation. You know, them four-wheel drive tractors, they ride better, they pull better and whatnot. So it's just easier if he runs that on him. You know, someday I'll be old and gray and I can be the one to run it, but I think it just works better for him to just stay in that one. And you know, he's real familiar with it. He didn't want to have to learn how to set a new tool and all that good stuff. So I'll just run the old Landoll on bean stubble and go from there. Luckily now we can actually run these two in the same field. Before you couldn't do that because, well, them Glencoe soil savers, you could run them on corn stalks, but man, you really had to watch them. They'd ball up like a bastard if you weren't careful. So we hardly ever done it. So we just run it on bean stubble. And then the 512, it could go on either one, bean stubble or corn stalks. But now, we can pretty much do anything with either tractor. So that'll be nice. So we're gonna run down here. We're gonna start in on 40 acres of bean stubble. We'll be basically right across the road from Larry. I don't remember if I've ever explained who Larry is or not. He's basically the best hired man on the planet. So he's Kevin's brother. He's I'm probably gonna be off here a little bit. We're gonna say he's 70 years old. He's give or take a year or two. But yeah, he's retired. He worked at the school for years in maintenance and finally retired a couple years ago. So got him around, we're gonna call it full-time, part-time. I mean, he's here whenever you need him. We're gonna work all day and all night, and if you don't need him, he'll stay home. So it works out really good. You know, he knows all the farms, knows all the equipment. I mean, you don't have to tell him nothing. You just say, hey, go here and do this, and he goes and does it. So works out great. So yeah, during harvest, we have Larry help us, and then my dad. My dad's the same way. He's 70 years old, roughly 72, 3, hell, I forget now how old he is. But so he helps us, and Larry helps us. There are two truck drivers in the fall, so that really works out nice. And the good thing about both of them is, you know, you're not married to a bunch of guys for the entire fall, you know, because they don't care. If it rains, they stay home. If you need them, they come in. So it's, you know, it's always kind of hard when you find a guy that's got to have a job, you know, if it's a rainy day and you just got a few odds and ends to do, and you don't really need somebody, you know, the right person, he ain't gonna go for that. He needs to work every day, where these two, they don't care. You don't need me, fine. If you do, that's fine too. So really works out nice. So yeah, there's Larry on the 512. One thing about old Larry though, if you like chisel plowing, you better not dilly-dally around, because he'll start at 5 in the morning and work till 10:30 at night. You'll blink your eyes and it'll all be done. So you got to go pretty fast to keep up with him. So there is a couple features on the Landoll that I want to show you compared to the Deere. And I didn't go over it earlier because I wanted to kind of see how it worked before I said anything. So I want to show you some stuff. So on the Landoll, our disc blades are hydraulic. You got a gauge here, goes from 0 to 6. So there's a lot of travel in them blades. So you can really run them deep or you can run them shallow. Now when I first got on bean stubble, I thought, well, we don't need to run them blades near as deep because we're not trying to bury a bunch of trash. Well, that wasn't the answer. It didn't look right behind the machine. It was leaving some great big valleys where the tires run. It's like it didn't have enough dirt mixed in with it to do a good job, I thought. And the reason being is both sets of gangs are on the same hydraulic. So when you move your gauge there up to, you know, 3, 4, 5, whatever, that's moving the front and back gangs at the same time. So you're not just lifting the front out or just the back. That's all on one. They're not independent of each other. It's all on one. So they all go up and they all go down. And that's why it was kind of looking like shit behind it, I think. Also, on the Landoll, you can change the angle of the gangs. Right now, we're in what I would call the shallow angle. The most aggressive is 18 degrees. The least aggressive, where we're at, is 16 degrees. So that's all you get, 16 or 18. So we're setting in 16 on the front. And then on the back, Where's the adjustment? It's kind of up in there. On the back, you can go from 12 to 14. So we're setting on 16 and 12. And that seems to be doing a pretty good job. And it is like the deer as far as you can raise or lower these shanks depending on your bolt pattern here. Deer has that too. It's 3 settings on a deer, and I think it's maybe just 2 on this one. I'd have to look at the pattern of the holes. I'm not exactly sure. So yeah, from what little I've ran this, my experience is you're not going to get on bean stubble and say, well, heck, I'm just going to raise the blades way up out of the ground because I don't need them. Yeah, I don't think you're mixing enough dirt under there to make it do a good job. I think you need them discs in the ground, stirring that dirt, so when the rolling basket or the chopper reel hits it, then it leaves it nice and smooth. Otherwise, you've got these big, you know, valleys and humps in there, and you're just trying to beat the tops off of them with that chopping reel, and it don't look right. So, disc blades in, and you're good to go, I think, is from what I'm seeing. So far, the chopping reel, I do kind of like it the more I run it. It's one of them things, it wouldn't be a necessity for me. I think it would still be okay without it, but I guess the more I look at it, the more maybe I do like it. So it's probably one of them deals, long as it works, I would have it, but it's, if you're gonna start having trouble with it or breaking framework or something that's gonna cause a lot of trouble, then it's like, well, I just soon have it off there. They've got a kit to make these hydraulic, so you can raise them up hydraulically out of your way. It's kind of a bastard to do it manually. You gotta get a loader, a tractor and loader or something, and pick up on this and get the tension off the springs and put a pin in it. It's kind of a job to do, but they do make a hydraulic kit where you can just raise them up out of the ground from the cab or lower them. And on them, they tell us you do it either all or none. You either raise them all the way up or you run them all the way down. There's no, you don't try to set anything hydraulically where it's in between. But we do have a hydraulic kit ordered for it, but didn't have time to put it on, and we've decided to go to the field, so we'll get it on maybe after season here. So far, I do think I like the Landoll. So everything this direction was the Landoll. But like I say, the clods, it beats them down pretty good. Every now and again, it was just like in them corn stalks. You know, you'll find one that's the size of a softball or something. But for the most part, it beats it down pretty level and knocks the clods out of it, which it should. It's got a chopper reel on it. You look over here at the 512 deer. Now, it does not have a chopping reel on the back, so it is going to be a little rougher. So, you know, you get into stuff like this, you know, quite a bit bigger. I mean, there you can see how big that slab is. But overall, it's not going to be that bad. You know, by the time you come back this spring, all this stuff will be melted down pretty good, and you probably ain't going to see a whole heck of a lot of difference. You'll probably see a little, but not too bad. So, overall, I'm happy with the Landoll so far. I think it's going to be a good tool. Got old Henry running her today. It's election day and the kids didn't have school. Burying the residue pretty good. You know, we're not looking for clean tillage here. It's nice to keep them, some of them stalks on top. you know, it just prevents erosion and everything else. So, you know, we're not looking to just turn this field completely black. So personally, I like what it's doing. A little bit of residue here and there. I had mixed feelings about that. I don't know if you want to call it a rolling basket or a chopper reel, whatever you want to call that on the back. I had some mixed feelings about it, but so far, I think I kind of like it, because the only difference in this Landoll and the deer running over there is the Landoll's got the chopping reel on the back. Other than that, they're both the same. It's disc blades, then chisel points, and then disc blades in the back. So it does leave it a little bit smoother than the deer. And I mean, rightfully so, it should. I have noticed that chopper reel's noisy as shit going through the field. Does a lot of banging and clanging and rattling, but doesn't seem to be anything out of order on it. I mean, I think that's just the way it sounds going through the field, which doesn't hurt nothing. You don't even hear it in the cab, but outside, boy, it really makes a lot of noise. So as you can see here, after the Landoll goes through, you know, your clods are, you know, about the size of a baseball or a softball, roughly, for the most part. Every now and again, well, like here's a root ball, you know, you'll get something like this that's kind of all stuck together, but for the most part, it beats her down pretty good. And I mean, truthfully, these conditions are just about right for chisel plowing, really. It's just a little bit damp underneath. And that's, with that chopper reel on the back, it's really breaking everything up nice. You know, if these conditions were a lot drier like they was a couple weeks ago, that might not be the case. I don't know, just because it was so hard. But we'll run down and compare this to the deer here in a minute. And I'm not knocking the deer, don't misunderstand me there. But all it's got's disc blades on the back, so it's gonna be a little rougher behind it. So to give you a little bit of an idea, the deer chisel is a 7 shank and the Landoll is a 5. So it's a little narrower. I think we bought that John Deere, and it's a 512 is the model. I think we bought it new in 2000 and either 8 or 9, one or the other. And this Landoll, I don't know the exact year on it. I'm gonna have to look it up. I think it's roughly 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. So it's a few years newer than the deer. Landoll has always been known to build very high quality, heavy tools. And I would say that's right. This is the first piece of Landoll equipment we've ever owned. And yeah, you can tell it's very well made. There's no question about it. The flip side to that, the deer 512, we've never had one nickel's worth of trouble with that thing, knock on wood. Made very well, frame and everything, you know, never been welded on, anything like that. I mean, truthfully, we've actually never touched that deer 512. I mean, put new points on it, whatever it is, every other year or whatever, but still got the original disc blades. They've held up very well. So when we first got that deer, I didn't like it the first several years because it's got a chisel shank right in the center of the machine. So it leaves a big, you know, cavity, valley, whatever you want to call it. And so the way that's set is you got to tip the machine fore and aft so them disc blades on the back will throw enough dirt to fill that gully. We'll just call it a gully, so it'll fill that in. And it's definitely not a machine that you just want to turn a 15-year-old kid loose on and say, here, go down here and chisel this, because it's kind of finicky. You got to make several adjustments on it. Now, like in this field, he pulled in, you know, made a couple rounds, just barely kind of tweaked it, and, you know, odds are now he won't touch it the rest of the field. So you do got to watch him, because if you get your machine tipped, you know, too far forward, then you're not going to get that gully filled in where the chisel shank ran. Or if you tip it too far back, then you're going to be throwing a great big ridge, and then your field's going to be all unlevel. So overall, I mean, me and Larry's pretty much the two that run it, and we know how to run it, so we don't have much trouble. But it's just one of them tools you just don't want to go turn somebody loose on it that's never been around one, or you could have problems. And another factor for us is, you know, we got so many different soil types on everything that we farm. It's not like we're up north and it's just all flat black dirt. You set it once and go. You know, you really do have to kind of babysit it and tweak it as you go. So, but other than that, I have no complaints on it. It does a good job of burying the trash, and we've had good luck with it. So, not knocking the Deere 512 by any means. Now, 6-7 years ago, I probably would have knocked it, but now that we're used to it, I can live with it. Now that John Deere there, you cannot raise the disc blades up and down or change the angle on them. Whatever it's set at from the factory is what it is. So it don't have near the adjustments that the Landoll does. So yeah, looking here behind the Deere, and it may be a little harder to see on camera too, but you know, it don't have the great big ridges like an old Glencoe soil saver would, but you know, you can just kind of barely see them, and especially, you know, once you get a little bit of rain and that all kind of settles. But you know, overall it's not terrible, don't get me wrong there. But as you can see, you know, it's got some clods to it. You know, nothing ungodly. That's kind of a root ball there. But yeah, it's just not quite as level, I guess you would say, as what the Landoll would have been. Like here, the Landoll, you know, that chopping reel would have busted that clear down. So if you look across here, overall, I mean, it's good. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but you can see where that chopper reel beats it down a lot more level. But the flip side is, like I said, we're not looking for, you know, tabletop level either. So it's just kind of to each his own on that deal. I personally don't mind it a little bit rougher. You know, that shit'll all melt down by spring, but either way. So yeah, there's another one there. You know, that chopping reel, that would have busted that right down. I mean, I can't knock that Deere. It definitely just chews the shit out of the stalks. I mean, it does a nice job of burying and everything. So, like I say, I can't knock it at all. If I had to pick right now, I really don't know which one I would tell you is better. I think they do a pretty similar job. So for those of you guys in different parts of the world that don't run anything like that, the principle behind that is you rip that big slot down through the soil, and then this winter, that'll fill with water, and then it'll freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw, and it'll keep expanding and contracting, and that's to shatter the ground then, basically. So that's why they do it around here anyway. That's what they tell us. So, you know, years ago, everybody would have pulled a moldboard plow and completely rolled the ground over, but there isn't anybody in this immediate area that does that anymore at all. For one, it's very time consuming, and two, I just don't know that there's any need for it. You know, these chisel plows seem to do a great job anymore, and so that's just kind of what everybody's went to. Well, folks, we're gonna have to shut her down here this week. I hope you all enjoyed this week's video. Stay tuned next week. We're going to keep on rolling on the chisel plowing. Hopefully, we'll be about to wind her down by then. Thanks for watching.